Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us at the virtual awards presentation ceremony in Yidan Prize Summit 2020. My name's Desmond So, and I'm your Master of Ceremony today. 2020, of course, is an unusual year for all of us, especially for those who work in the education field. COVID-19 has disrupted education across the globe. While teachers and students have had to move from traditional classroom learning to online learning, our annual ceremony and summit have had to go virtual as well. Although we're not able to meet you all in person this year, we're pleased to welcome audiences from around the world to join us at our event via this online platform. To begin the program, let's enjoy a performance by the renowned Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra. The piece that they'll be performing is called The Sun. Thank you so much for that wonderful performance from the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra. Special thanks to the conductor, Mr. Chao Hei Chet, and the artistic director, Professor Yan Hui Chang, SBS. The Yidan Prize Foundation is a global philanthropic educational foundation focused on inspiring and supporting innovative ideas and practices that positively contribute to and transform education to benefit future generations and society. The Yidan Prize is a global inclusive education award which recognizes changemakers who support and inspire progress and effect change in education for a better world. As a firm believer in the power of education, the Foundation established the Yidan Prize to provide a platform to bring together changemakers to form a global community to spark impactful education initiatives. The collaboration brings out the full potential of ideas and practices to make progressive change in education. And now, I would like to give the floor to the founder of Yidan Prize, Dr. Charles Chen Yidan, a philanthropist, entrepreneur, and lifelong learner. Dr. Chen, please.
The Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Your Royal Highness Princess Laureates of the Netherlands. The Honourable Miss Julia Gillard, esteemed Yidan Prize laureates, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 Yidan Prize Awards presentation ceremony and summit. Thank you very much for tuning in from different parts of the world. This is an unusual year, which has seen over 90% of the world's students affected by school closures due to the pandemic. Students, teachers, and parents are all coming to terms with a different form of teaching and learning. No one could have predicted education systems globally will face sustained disruption of this scale for most of 2020. Understandably, people are feeling anxious because no one can be sure what lies ahead. The worsening inequality must be addressed, and we will have to find solutions. COVID-19 has thrown education systems into chaos. Due to the pandemic, 90% of students around the world have faced school closures, while some of these students have been able to switch on their laptops and swap to virtual classrooms with relative ease. That experience is far from universal. Only half of the world's children have access to the internet, despite creative and agile solutions, with education provided while radio, mobile, and TV networks. At least 48% of students in Africa could not be reached by digital and broadcast technologies. In low-middle income countries, 40% were and continue to be unable to support learners at risk of exclusion during the pandemic. The world will one day recover. My greatest hope is that this crisis has given us time for self-reflection on what we have learned about education and how we can ensure it's fairly distributed in the future. Faced with the challenges, we must work together. if we are going to create better education, we must collaborate. Education experts across all fields must come together to share their ideas. Top quality research must drive real life learning, which in turn can give us the basis for more education research. That is why the Yidan Prize Foundation has called for international experts to work together and build a better world through education. Through establishing the Yidan Prize, we have seen inspiring work globally. Our platform has enabled a greater understanding of the work of brilliant researchers and change makers on the ground from Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, and South America. We have learned through our laureates' work that collective effort will deliver much deeper impact, and solutions will become more effective by utilizing evidence from quality research, quality data gathered through programs carefully crafted. Passionate change makers and their communities can inspire new research directions and policies to make education more accessible for everyone. In light of this, we would like to focus on 3 key messages. First, leadership and synergy. Education leaders are coming together to create a more equitable and inclusive global community, and we are very pleased to be part of it. Accelerating change and action, we all believe in the power of education. We know that we need to work together. We are hopeful for the future. The World Bank recently launched a global education evidence advisory panel. Leaders are looking to understand not only what is effective in getting more children into school, but also how to improve learning outcomes once they are there. Given the scale of the challenge, resources need to be directed to the most cost-effective and impactful approaches. Now, only half of all children in low and middle income countries are literate by age 10, despite the ambitions of Sustainable Development Goal 4 for inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong opportunities for all. Having a strong evidence base is critical. Where education systems are flourishing, we can learn from their strengths and successful experience. This knowledge will benefit other systems which have their own unique contexts and constraints. Secondly, commitment and actions. Effective change requires commitment from all key system actors. By having the right policies and incentives in place, empowering the teams tasked with delivering change at all levels. The Yidan Prize Foundation joined the UNESCO Global Education Coalition earlier this year with a commitment to strengthen learning systems. We are partnering with OECD to empower teachers and students. We believe the roles of students and teachers will change. We believe that schooling will evolve and learning will take a new form in the future. Thirdly, innovation and inspiration. We are actively taking many new steps because we care very deeply about our future generation It will be the choices they make that determine their future. We are here to offer them the right tools to bring on this journey of discovery and exploration. We are also offering inspiring stories of passionate actors on this international platform. Their work has brought about hugely positive changes to communities all around the world. They have made transformation possible in innovative, sustainable ways. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we are very pleased that our independent judging committee has selected a new batch of highly impressive educators who have transformed the way science is taught in major universities and how girls and young women are educated in Africa. Professor Carl Wieman, Professor of Physics and Graduate School of Education and DRC Chair at Stanford University, was awarded the 2020 Yidan Prize for Education Research. His work prepares the next generation of students to make sound decisions based on scientific measures. He created tools to encourage active learning. The physics education technology interactive simulations, or FAT for short, has delivered more than 700 million simulations in 93 languages in physics, chemistry, math, earth science, and biology. Professor Wieman, we thank you for making this possible for our future generations. For the first time, we have a team selected as laureates of our 2020 Yidan Prize for Education Development. Ms. Lucy Lake, Chief Executive Officer, and Ms. Angeline Murimirwa, Executive Director in Africa of the Campaign for Female Education, or CAMFED for short, were awarded the prize for providing a scalable approach to recognize the untapped potential of educated young women to drive change across Africa. Their programs have transformed 4 million lives thus far, and with support from the Yidan Prize Fund, they aspire to benefit 5 million more girls and young women in Africa. It's most interesting to know that Angie was among the first girls to benefit from CAMFED's program some 27 years ago. We thank you, Lucy and Angie, for making dreams come true for so many girls and young women in Africa. A world that is experiencing the pandemic and challenges requires more devotion and effort. We sincerely hope that the great passion and outstanding accomplishments of our Yidan Prize laureates will inspire more positive actions and collaborations. Together, we can create a better world through education. Today, we marked the highest recognition in education globally for Professor Wieman's, Lucy's, and Angie's work, for recognizing the importance of science and for the important role girls and young women can play when they receive the education they deserve. It's our honor to have the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, join us as the officiating guest for the 2020 Yidan Prize Awards presentation ceremony and summit. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a wonderful time.
Thank you, Dr. Cheng. Now I would like to invite our officiating guest, the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to give her welcome remarks. Mrs. Lam, please.
Dr. Cheng, Her Royal Highness Princess Laurentine of the Netherlands, Ms. Gillard, Mr. Schleicher, Ms. Gordon, Laureates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's Yidan Prize Awards presentation ceremony. This annual gathering for the Yidan Prize presentation, which I attended every year since its inception, is always a gratifying day for education, even though this year the event has to take place virtually due to the pandemic. Viewed from a screen, the ceremony may, at a glance, appear smaller or less significant, but the mission of the Yidan Prize is as ambitious today as when it was founded 4 years ago by Dr. Charles Cheng Yidan, and that's to create a better world through education. This year, Yidan Prize 9 judges deliberated online across 7 time zones, applying the same 4 criteria as always, that the nominations demonstrate future-oriented, innovative, transformative, and sustainable efforts at the very highest levels of educational excellence. Our 2020 winners certainly reveal that. Professor Carl Wieman, recipient of the Yidan Prize for Education Research and a Nobel Prize winner in physics, has transformed the way science is taught, and in so many ways. His science education initiative and interactive technology-based simulations come to mind. So too does his singular passion for STEM education and the research so essential to improving it, to helping us all make better decisions and live better lives. Lucy Lake and Angeline Murimirwa, the winners of this year's Yidan Prize for Education Development, partnered with communities in 5 African nations to bring the promise of inclusive education to marginalized girls and young women. Through their program, Campaign for Female Education, they have helped millions of girls get an education. I'm pleased to add that they are also empowering young women to take their place in society as economically independent adults. The pioneering efforts of Lucy Lake, Angeline Murimirwa, and Professor Carl Wieman are helping inspire a new generation of educators. And I'm confident that their trailblazing innovation and educational leadership will resonate here in Hong Kong. My government shares the vision of the Yidan Prize. Through education, we hope to nurture young men and women who are socially responsible, who embrace a sense of national identity and affection for Hong Kong and an international perspective. In short, the leaders we will count on to ensure a flourishing, sustainable, and inclusive Hong Kong. My sincere gratitude to Dr. Cheng and all those associated with the Yidan Prize for encouraging world-class educational research and development, and for celebrating the visionaries who make it happen. Thank you for bringing the promise of quality and rewarding education to all. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased and honored to present this year's Yidan Prizes.
Thank you, Mrs. Lam. Due to COVID-19, this year is the first time that the Yidan Prize judging process was conducted entirely online across 7 different time zones. The Yidan Prize Foundation would like to give special thanks to members of the judging committee for their tireless efforts in reviewing the nominations and selecting our laureates of 2020. Today, we're going to award the 2020 Yidan Prize for Education Research and Yidan Prize for Education Development. Let's begin with the Research Prize. The laureate of Yidan Prize for Education Research in 2020 is Professor Carl Wieman, Professor of Physics and Graduate School of Education and DRC Chair at Stanford University. Let's find out more about the impact of his incredible work.
I started in education research over 30 years ago as an outgrowth of my atomic physics research. In that physics research, I worked closely with graduate students, and I noticed a puzzling pattern. All these students had many years of great success in physics courses, but when they started working in my lab, they couldn't really do physics. But they were clearly capable because after just a couple years working in my lab, they'd become good physicists. After seeing this pattern repeated many times, I decided there was a fundamental puzzle here to be investigated as a science problem. So I looked at what was known about learning, and particularly learning how to do physics. And in doing that, I discovered there was a lot known, and it explained this puzzle, but it also made me realize there were much better ways to teach physics than what were being used. And it got me started doing education research. I realized that I could do research in education that would develop principles and test them with careful experiments and discover new insights, much like I was doing in my atomic physics research. So for the next 20 years or so, I had parallel research groups, one blasting with atoms with lasers and seeing how they behaved, the other group studying the teaching of learning of first physics, and then generally applied to all areas of science and engineering.
I first took a course with Professor Wieman about teaching and learning in physics, and that's where I became intrigued by the notion of taking a scientific approach to science education. Carl Wieman showed us how to use our skills and training as physicists to approach problems in physics education and to learn how to improve student learning in physics courses.
Now, in recent years, I've focused entirely on the education research as I see it as offering more opportunities to have an important impact on society. My education research has continued to focus on the subject of the original puzzle. How do skilled scientists and engineers solve problems, and how can we best teach people that kind of thinking so they can apply it to make better decisions in all aspects of their lives? So this isn't about knowing lots of facts, which unfortunately is the focus of most science education these days, but rather it's about being able to appropriately apply those facts, the knowledge of science, to make good decisions in new situations, whether those might be decisions about a person's personal life that'll make them healthier, or decisions about how to solve problems in their job.
Over his career, Carl has worked at the cutting edge of both science and education research. He has a passion for both science and education, I think because he sees each as a powerful lever for improving the world. I started working with Carl just as he was turning his energy from his world-class science research to the challenges of science education. It was a very exciting time. He had won the Nobel Prize in Physics and had started using some early interactive simulations to help explain his research. He was just immediately struck by how engaging and effective they were for a really wide range of audiences. Carl could dynamically adjust parameters. The visualizations would immediately change, just like an experiment.
Professor Wieman is a great scientist, but he's also a creative instructor. He came up with something called PhET simulations. So these simulations are very high quality science content, but they're extremely accessible and usable by many, many people. And so to sort of understand how creative this was, 20 years ago, we did not teach with computer simulations. You couldn't manipulate gravity and see how it would affect planet orbits. But he envisioned that possibility, and this has been a very successful idea that many, many people are using now.
What I did was I started teaching with Carl a few years ago. We were teaching introductory mechanics. And I could see that the students, when the students really engaged with the material through worksheets, through talking to each other, through working with simulations like the PhET simulations, I could see that although they were still struggling with it and it still didn't come naturally to them, that at least they were starting to really grapple with what physics is about. What I saw was students just gaining a tremendous amount of confidence in their ability to at least work with the material and to be able to start to solve problems.
What excites me is that we're finding better ways, often much better ways, to achieve this kind of valuable learning than what's obtained using the traditional teaching methods that are being used. And we can measure those results. Every day, my students and postdocs are gaining new insights and finding new ways to overcome specific learning challenges to improve the learning of science and engineering and medicine by a diverse population.
So rather than giving students a protocol that someone else has already developed, why not let them design the experiment? And the idea is to engage students really in the process of what an expert experimental physicist would do to design an experiment, to carry out an experiment. And this has led to the research that Carl Wieman's been focusing on recently about the idea of engaging students with the decision-making processes that a scientist would do. And so what we really should be teaching students is how to make good decisions in the lab.
An equal opportunity to learn anything, not only problem solving, requires understanding the barriers against equality. We have looked at such barriers in the context of introductory science and engineering courses. And we have shown that in these courses, the underrepresented demographic students are underserved. This body of work has led to rethinking the introductory courses in science and engineering to make sure every student with aspiration to pursue STEM is provided the opportunity to do so.
I have a vision that in the not too distant future, we'll be providing an education to all students that's dramatically more effective and beneficial to them than what most are now getting. This will be provided by teachers who are rigorously trained according to the findings of research on learning and by the effective use of new technologies. I actually see teaching as being in much the same situation as the practice of medicine was in the mid-1800s. At that point, medicine had been largely unchanged for 2,000 years, with bloodletting being the treatment of choice, but research was revealing completely new ways to think about disease and treatments. And that led to a slow revolution in the way doctors were trained and certified, and the practice of medicine and public health policies. And of course, this research-driven revolution has resulted in enormous improvements in human health. And my vision is that we'll see something comparable in education in the next few decades, driven by the advances in research we're making today.
So I think one of the other things that really impressed me about Carl and his research and the way he thinks about teaching and about the science of learning is you could just tell how much he cares about the students in his classes and how much he wants them to learn. And also the way that he is just so enthusiastic about showing people what good teaching can look like and what the outcomes of good teaching can be. And I think that's very exciting because we do need some kind of revolution in the way we teach, not just physics, but math, chemistry, other STEM courses at Stanford. And so for me, it's been a personal journey of learning how to teach. And I'm seeing that journey play out for my colleagues as well.
2020 has been such an incredibly challenging year for education as classrooms around the globe have been forced to shift to remote learning because of COVID-19. But it has been great to see the PhET simulations helping teachers to keep their students actively engaged in exploring and discovering science. One of the ongoing challenges for the PhET project is continuing to scale access and support globally.
The Yidan prize money will go to support the growth and improvement of the PhET project through adding new simulations, providing more guidance to teachers on how to best use them, and increasing the accessibility and use of these simulations around the world, particularly in Africa and South America.
Today we have over 150 PhET simulations covering a wide range of science and math topics used from elementary school to university. We have translations into 94 languages so far and about 200 million simulation uses per year around the world. Consistent with Carl's founding vision, the simulations are all published as open educational resources that are free for teachers and students around the world. We hope to reach many more teachers and learners, from those in refugee camps to inner cities to rural schools, whether connected to the internet or not. The Yidan Prize really couldn't have come at a more critical time for STEM education.
May I now invite the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to present the prize to our Research Laureate, Professor Carl Wieman. Mrs. Lam, please.
Congratulations to Professor Carl Wieman, Yidan Prize for Education Research Laureate 2020, for your contribution in developing new techniques and tools in STEM education.
Professor Carl Wieman was awarded the Yidan Prize for Education Research for his contributions to developing new techniques and tools in STEM education. Professor Wieman is considered the world's foremost scholar on college science teaching, with his research on active learning preparing the next generation of students to be more scientifically literate. Thank you, Mrs. Lam, and congratulations, Professor Carl Wieman. Now let's move to the next category. The laureates of Yidan Prize for Education Development in 2020 are Ms. Lucy Lake and Ms. Angeline Murimirwa from Campaign for Female Education, CAMFED. This is the first time that the Yidan Prize has been awarded to a team. Let's find out more about CAMFED's wonderful work.
My name is Angeline Murimirwa. I was one of the first girls to be supported through school by CAMFED, and I'm now CAMFED's Executive Director in Africa. My personal experience of the poverty-related barriers to education, barriers that would have prevented me from going to secondary school, is the experience of millions of girls, and it is what drives me. Along with my peers, we are now a network of young women leaders, united by our shared experience of poverty and exclusion. We understand from intimate experience how poverty can undermine a family's efforts to do the best for their children. We also know what it takes to ensure a girl in a situation of extreme vulnerability has the support she needs to go to school, to feel secure, and to learn. We have come together in the CAMFED Association as a network through which we can pool our resources and our expertise to support the younger generation of girls to go to school. Our network is now more than 157,000 strong and is growing year on year as more girls complete school and join.
Like Angie, I was one of the founding members of the CAMFED Association in Zimbabwe. I worked alongside Angie and Lucy to set the foundations in place for it to become a network to represent girls and young women and bring them center stage. I always remember our first meeting. We came from rural areas across the country, and we embraced our shared identity as young women who had beaten the odds. We realized the power we had in joining together, the power to make change in our own lives and in the lives of others. The Learner Guide program is where we bring this all together. The Learner Guide is a young woman school graduate who signs up to a 2-year commitment to return to her local school. She receives training to deliver a self-development and well-being curriculum and runs regular sessions with students. In the process, she identifies girls who are vulnerable, and she joins forces with her community and with school authorities to ensure they get the right support. In this way, through our Learner Guide program, we're helping to ensure the education system works for marginalized girls.
So we designed this program, our Learner Guide program, to be able to complement the efforts that the government of Tanzania is doing in addressing the issue of learning, quality education and inclusive education. And also to address the issue of transitioning. So transitioning from one class to another for girls and boys to be able to finish school, but also transitioning back into the community, into safer life. So the young women are trained, the CAMA members are trained, and come back to their schools to be able to deliver the life skills curriculum, a curriculum that is meant to impart skills within the students in school to be able to gain confidence, to increase their self-awareness, to be able to face the challenges, because it is focusing on well-being as an individual, but also exploring the power that these children have to be able to face the challenges that are in their communities.
Kwenye uzoefu wangu ule na guide, yani naweza kusimama mbele za watu kuzungumzia jambo, na pia imenijengea wanafunzi kuwa karibu na mimi, yani kila ninakopita madamu alafu ile mtoto labda anaweza akawa na changamoto.
Learner guide, they feel a huge gap that we see in our secondary education. Teachers, they are busy preparing their lesson plan, busy teaching, busy preparing examinations, marking scheme, but the student need support. Apart from that, they need mental support. They need counseling, they need emotional supports. So the learner guides are the one who fill that gap.
Ni matokeo ambayo yametokana na learner guides. Kwanza tumeona self awareness ya wanafunzi, lakini pia wanafunzi wamekuwa na umoja. Yaani vile vitu wanavyofundishwa wamefanya wamekuwa na umoja. Hata akimwona mwenzao ana changamoto, kuna mwingine yani bado anakuwa hana ile uwezo, wanamuencourage. Bwana, kitu ambacho kitatokea ni kwamba kwanza unajua hawa ni vijana wadogo na kama wanafunzi. Kwa hiyo wanafunzi wanaweza kuwa reach kwa urahisi. Kwa hiyo watakuwa wanajitambua yani. Watakuwa wanajitambua. Kwa hiyo kitendo cha kujitambua mwanafunzi akishajua mimi niko shule hapa nasoma.
Learner guides take a lot of efforts to return excluded students to the classroom, because there are activities they are doing, asking their fellow, where is your fellow student? So the students in class, you see, they say, oh, she's maybe selling some fishes with her mother. So from the class, the learner guide got enough information and attend teachers. So when meet with the teachers, it is where they start a plan on how to make a student come back.
Dunia yangu bora imeanzishwa kwa sababu ya lengo la kuongeza ufaulu mashuleni, kupunguza utoro na kupunguza mimba na ndoa za utotoni.
Ndoto nafikiria kama mlezi wangu, kwa sababu kanisaidia vitu ambavyo nilivikosa katika jamii yangu. Madam ndoto amenisaidia pesa ya kula, amenisaidia socks kwenda kununua, amenisaidia salaries kupata ili kuwa pamoja na kuwa na wenzangu tuwe sawa. Ndoto ndio ni kioo cha jamii, kwa sababu anasaidia vitu vingi ambavyo nimevikosa hapa shuleni. Ndoto nakaa naye nje na ongea naye mambo yangu ya binafsi.
So if we have this learner guide program and they learn these soft skills that are within the My Better World program, we are creating youth who are very responsible, who are very respectful, who are loving each other. They are ready to support each other instead of competing among themselves. And ultimately we have people who can offer themselves, who can think and have goal. And we will see ultimately they are not only supporting themselves, but they are also able to step up even when they don't pass completely to go to high school or to have a degree, but they have that skills that can help them to be able to face life.
Through our Learner Guide program, our goal is to ensure 5 million girls in 5 countries of sub-Saharan Africa have the support they need to be in school, to thrive, and to succeed. We'll achieve this by training 100,000 learner guides to be operating in schools, with each learner guide supporting an average of 50 marginalized girls. This might sound too ambitious, but believe me, it's not. The activism in our network is irrepressible. Our members will stop at nothing to dismantle the barriers girls face. And what of the learner guides themselves? Well, through the opportunities and status that a learner guide acquires through her role, including the formal qualifications she receives, many are transitioning into formal employment or further education. Indeed, a number of learner guides are going on to become trained teachers. Ultimately, they are stepping forward as a new generation of leaders in education.
Angie, Fiona and I have worked together over the past few decades to build the CAMFED Association, and right from the early days, partnerships have been key to our success, including partnerships with traditional leaders.
And partnerships have been at the core of our Learner Guide programme. Our partnerships with school communities provide the local support system for learner guides, and our partnerships with ministries mean that learner guide activities are fully integrated in schools. And our partnerships with the private sector help create the wellbeing curriculum that learner guides deliver and the accredited qualification that they can achieve. And there's one common factor in all these partnerships, which I believe has been fundamental to our success. And it's that learner guides are recognised and respected by all partners as the experts, as young women who once themselves experienced exclusion and who understand what it takes to ensure the most vulnerable children have the support they need to be in school and learn. This recognition and positioning of young women's expertise has had a profound effect, which was brought to life by one learner guide who said, "It means we've gone from being nobodies to becoming somebodies in our communities. And as a network, those somebodies are a powerful force." This to me is where social change meets systems change. This is how we can achieve a shift in the education system to not just accommodate the needs of marginalised girls, but to serve marginalised children. And the importance of this has been underlined by our research colleagues at the Real Centre at Cambridge University. Using CamFed's data, they've shown that inclusive education systems will function for everyone if they function for the most marginalised girls. And looking ahead, I think we have a great opportunity to consider how our learner guide model could be taken beyond our current countries of operation and explore to what extent it's a model with universal relevance. To this end, the Yidan Prize and the Yidan community open up a whole new realm of possibility as we come together in pursuit of our common goal to create a better world through education.
May I now invite the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to present the prize to our development laureates. Mrs. Lam, please.
Congratulations to Ms. Lucy Lick and Ms. Angeline Murimirwa, Yidan Prize for Education Development Laureates 2020, for your contribution to inclusive and equitable quality education for girls and young women.
Ms. Lucy Lake and Ms. Angeline Murimirwa were awarded the Yidan Prize for Education Development for their work to support marginalized girls' education. Their Learner Guide program provides a scalable and replicable approach to inclusive and equitable quality education for girls and young women in sub-Saharan Africa. We would like to extend our sincere congratulations to Professor Carl Wieman, Ms. Lucy Lake, and Ms. Angeline Murimirwa for their outstanding achievements. The Yidan Prize will work closely with them in the coming years in scaling their projects as well as extending their reach to other countries. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the inspiring work of our 2020 laureates. This marks the end of the award ceremony. Please join us at the Yidan Prize Summit, which begins in just a few moments.